Please take your seats. The meeting is about to begin. Please stand by. We are going on air in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Good afternoon and welcome to the special commission meeting of July 9th, 2024. We're going to discuss the city manager position and the process. So thank you all for being here. Good afternoon. Before we get started, Ms. Clerk, if you can read us any announcements that we need for today.
Okay, during this hybrid commission meeting, the City Commission is physically present in the Commission Chamber at Miami Beach City Hall, 1700 Convention Center Drive, 3rd floor. The public may attend the meeting virtually. However, members of the public who wish to attend the meeting in person may appear at the Commission Chamber. To participate virtually, the public may join the meeting by visiting the Zoom app on their smart device or on the web at zoom.us, or by telephone at 305-224-1968. Again, that's 305-224-1968, or at the toll-free number 888-475-4499. The webinar ID is 813-928-57671#. Again, 813-928-57671#. There are no more announcements, Mayor. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So a couple of things we're going to do today. We have the company that did the national search, HR.gov, on the line. We're going to hear from them. We're going to hear from our city attorney, Rick DePico, to discuss the process. And obviously, we're going to hear from all of us here on the dais to see what our next steps are. I will say briefly, this was a decision that our commission made a couple of months ago to do a national search. We received over 120 resumes, 29 different, we had applicants from 29 different states. The HR company also, and I know this because people told me they received sort of code calls from the company, that even individuals who did not apply but who are highly qualified and have good reputations as potential city managers were contacted by the company. So I was actually very relieved to hear that. So this has been a very robust search. I am disappointed, as you see from the finalists, that we have 8 men. Which is great. I don't mean I'm disappointed that they're in, but there are no women, and I did follow up in a very robust way with the company to try to find out why that is. And unfortunately, there is many components to it. There were women, qualified women who applied, but ultimately this is a very also open process. People are putting themselves on the line from a public relations standpoint, but also putting themselves on the line with their current employers because it's so transparent. Just the list of the 8 candidates who applied, some of whom will be finalists, presumably, some will not. And yet their employer will know that they applied. So there's many components to this, but ideally I would have liked to have seen some females on the group, but that ultimately did not happen. This is probably the most important decision. Well, we make many important decisions here, but this is going to be the chief executive officer of our city, which has many components to it. Obviously, dealing with our residents, running our departments across the board. I don't want to start picking and choosing, but our police, fire, public works, sanitation, every department ultimately rests in the city manager's hands and ultimately has to respond and be held accountable by us, the commission. So this is an important decision. I'm happy we're going through this process. We need to get this right, and we need to get it moving because we could make a final decision today. My guess is that's not going to happen, but we could. We could make a final decision in July. That would be my preference. But if we don't make those decisions promptly, and we have no meeting in August, then we're now in September, which could have some problems in itself. So we'll deal with that as they come, but I will turn it now over to Rick DePico, our city attorney.
Thank you, Mayor. So today there are 3 items for the body's consideration. The first is how many finalists the body wishes to move to the next phase of this process. And I mean, I've heard 3, I've heard 4, I've heard 2, so that is something that that you all will need to discuss and decide upon. The second component today is the ranking of the 8 candidates that you have each had an opportunity to interview over the past couple of weeks. And once you do those rankings, we will announce the top 2, 3, or 4, whatever number. The first step, remember, is to decide how many finalists you wish to see at the next meeting in July. Important to note that when you do your rankings, you do need to fill out 1 through 8 for each. For each candidate needs to receive a number, because there was a question by one of your colleagues as to whether they could simply rank their first 3. That would skew the results, because the way that this will work is that we will add the rankings, and whoever has the lowest scores will actually move to the next phase. And then the final item is the approval of the commission to cover expenses of travel and accommodation for the finalists, so that any of them who do not live in the Miami-Dade County area can be here in a couple of weeks. So that is what we are looking for the body to provide direction on today.
Your presentation?
Jim, are you on?
I am on. Good afternoon. Can everyone hear me?
Thanks for being here, Jim.
Hey, my pleasure. We had if you don't mind, Mr. Mayor, I think I'm going to make a few comments about the process, because I think people need to know what happened. Obviously, we were out for a month. All of our advertising, and I'll talk about some of the efforts we made to try and contact people, resulted in 124 resumes from 29 states. Out of that, 11 candidates were selected based on their resumes for interview. Out of the 11, we moved 8 along. Now, we'll be willing to go over all 8. They all have different strengths and weaknesses. And out of the 8, obviously you need to decide where you're at. I would tell you that we don't believe all 8 are equal, that some are probably stronger than others, but it's our job to show you the candidate pool as best we can that did apply. How did we go about this? We did all the advertising you saw. In addition, we made a special effort. We have about 25,000 people that go to our website on a monthly basis. We have approximately 7,500 people that really are serious, whether they tell people or not. We know that they're serious about either looking for a better job or a new job. A special email went to all of them. Also, myself and Joan, who's also here, we went to FCCMA conference. We interviewed 9 people there. We put the word out at the conference. Joan herself, we're a woman-owned company, and we really promote diversity in trying to get a good candidate pool. I know a number of women. Joan knows more than I do, and Mary also helped us, Mary Jacobs. Joan spoke to over 25 different potential candidates. I know that Mary had about 10 contacts that she talked to me about. I personally spoke to 8 individual candidates that I thought would be good candidates. These are all people that are employed. I also went out, and Joan and I both, and we talked to the other 36 recruiters we have across the country. We made sure that they understood how good an opportunity this was. And we do think it is a premier job for people. Put that word out. I also talked to 10 other contacts that I have in different parts of the country about people that I may not know of that may be looking for jobs, and talk to them about this to move it along. Actually, I also talked to 2 other recruiting firms that don't compete with us. They're in different parts of the country. And we tried to get as many candidates. I wish we had a better candidate pool, but there are various reasons why people have issues with applying, especially if they have a job. And Florida is having a bigger and bigger problem with this, because we now, in Florida, because of the open records law, and I believe in open records, but you're identifying candidates publicly, and especially if you're a city like Miami Beach that's going to get a lot of coverage, you're identifying people before they're even finalists. And I will tell you that it's unfortunate in the public sector, but if someone starts to look for another job, even if they're just looking, that a lot of times it can upset their current employment. Also, when we go out in that month, it's really a snapshot in time. You never know, the next month you might go out and a person who might have been afraid to put in their resume may no longer have that job and may no longer be afraid to put in their resume. With that, we'd be willing to go through the individual candidates in alphabetical order. Joan will give a little synopsis. I will give some strengths and weaknesses, and to help you make a decision on how to narrow this pool down and where you want to go from here. I hope that helped, giving an overview.
Sounds good.
All right, you want to start going over the individual candidates?
Yeah, I would. I mean, this information is public, so I would do it fairly quickly for each candidate since there's 8.
We'll go quick. Joan?
Okay, thanks.
Our first candidate is Scott Andrews. Scott is. Hello, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. Our first candidate is Scott Andrews. He is currently the Assistant City Manager in Bakersfield, California, and oversees human resources, finance, parks and rec, technology services, economic development, community relations, and safety and risk. He facilitated the passage of the city's annual budget and the capital improvement plan. Prior to that, he served as city manager, chief administrative officer of Covington, Georgia, in a full-service municipality. Scott is a servant leader whose personal philosophy is to lead with love. He sees empathy and vulnerability as superpowers. He's a lifelong learner and brings a compassionate perspective to each part of his job. He has a Doctor of Education in Organizational Leadership, master's degree in public administration, and a bachelor's degree in business management. He was awarded the Harvard Kennedy School Scholarship for 2024 and just completed the 3-week Senior Executives in State and Local Government Program school in June. The city's dynamic environment and diverse population align with his passion for innovation, development, and inclusive governance, and makes this a compelling next move in his professional career.
All right, I'll go real quickly over a couple of topics. Public safety, he has a lot of good hands-on experience, very strong in that area, which is obviously important to Miami Beach. Public works, public infrastructure, good skills there. Work diversity, has a real great attitude. I think he has a lot of experience and work with a lot of different kind of people. Communication skills are good. On the environmental sensitivity issues, he understands the issue. He has not been involved with it as much as some other people. He has a reasonable amount of experience when it comes to tourism, hotels, development such as that. I think when it comes to making tough decisions, he seems pretty good. He's had some issues with fire and public safety that he's had to deal with, and his HR sense seems pretty good. He also comes to you with no baggage. Next candidate.
Okay, our second
By the way,
candidate is Anthony Alcastro.
Just a quick question. The profiles you're reading, is that what you have accumulated and put together, or is this from the candidate themselves?
Both.
Joan?
Both.
We have a question from Commissioner
In
Suarez.
Joan's case, it's from both. Mine
Yes.
are directly from me.
Commissioner Suarez.
Mayor Minor, thank you for acknowledging me. I don't know if this is needed. I don't think we need a summary of each candidate. I think we've had enough time to go through each candidate. I think considering we're going to have a land use meeting in about an hour, I think we should start with the process.
If nobody has an objection to that, I will accept that. Commissioner Bott.
I don't need a recitation of their qualifications that were submitted because we've all seen that or talked to people. I would be interested in hearing the sort of experienced, judicious input from Jim because he's interviewed hundreds or thousands of candidates over his career where I have
Right.
not. And I would very much like to hear if anybody has baggage.
Okay. I can go real quick, so hang with me, if that's okay, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, but
All right.
I agree
next
with what I think,
candidate?
Jim, I think what you're hearing, the consensus is, shorter and more sort of your input and expertise
Nope.
as opposed to just the traditional bio that we can read.
No problem.
And by the way, I think most of
Anthony,
us have met, I've met with all the candidates. I think most of us have met with all the candidates.
Okay. All right. Anthony, your second candidate, here's your non-traditional candidate. And you talked to us about somebody that has private sector experience. He's a very unusual guy, has a lot of private sector experience, a lot of work diversity. I thought he was very, very unique. Okay. He's a little older. He's got 37 years of experience. What made him really unique is that he has an understanding of police, which most people in the private sector would never have because of his experience with San Francisco's airport. I've run 2 airports. I can tell you police and public safety and fire are big deals at public airports. He has no baggage. He's very professional and polished. And he currently is a resident in Miami Beach, which we always take a look at. So he has a unique perspective on the issues, and he's fluent in Spanish. Okay, that's it. That's Anthony. Is that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Is it?
How do you
Is that-
define,
is that
how
what
do
you
you
want?
define
Okay.
no baggage?
No.
Sorry, I gotta
on.
ask. No, like,
No baggage. You get 2 types. You get no baggage means that there is nothing on social media that we can find that would be something that would cause your eyebrows to rise or would be something that could bring embarrassment to the city. Okay. There's no issues like that. Now there's 2 other types of baggage. One is baggage where somebody, for example, I have one candidate here who is no longer working, but I'm convinced after understanding how this profession works, that in his case, he no longer is employed, strictly politics. Had nothing to do with performance. In fact, all of his performance evaluations are great. But he's unemployed because politics changed. Now, there's other baggage where of the 11 people that I said that we interviewed, you notice we only gave you 8. We cut out one person quit, dropped out, but 2 people, they had enough baggage of serious things to call into question their professionalism and would not be qualities that you would be interested in probably taking on, or I shouldn't say qualities, but they'd be issues that the city of Miami Beach does not want to take on.
thank you. Okay, next candidate?
Mayor.
That's,
Hold
Eric
on,
Carpenter.
Jim, if you don't mind. I
yeah.
find it, it's just, I don't know if it's me, but it's just really odd to be airing sort of baggage of the people who are risking their careers, family, reputation, and putting on a public display. I mean, I'm assuming that of these 9 finalists, despite baggage or no baggage, these are the ones who HR Gov has recommended to us. I don't think we need to, talk negatively about them. If anything was suspicious, then they wouldn't be considered in the 9 out of the over 100 resumes.
Right.
Like, so,
Right.
I mean,
was
I
asked
find it a little
I was asked
inappropriate, Jim, that you're saying like, there's no baggage here, no baggage there, but hey, this person has baggage because, political reasons. I don't know if that's necessarily baggage. I mean, we had a city manager.
Well,
That person was nixed. He's saying that person is not part of this group. So we don't know who that person is.
And I'm simply
Right.
saying like the same thing happened to, Jim, excuse me. I'm simply saying the same thing happened to, Alina. Administration changes. She was an excellent city manager, but we wanted a fresh start. Would she still have this quote unquote baggage? I don't, I believe so. And I don't think it's appropriate to say who's got baggage or not baggage, because again, this is again, public record, and, people's lives are at stake here.
Yeah, I I think for many reasons let's leave that out. I'll let you respond to continue, Jim, but let's even leave that out.
Okay, but anybody that we gave you has nothing in their background that would be important enough to not consider them as a candidate. I only said that because I was asked. I will tell you, a lot of employers, city commissions, really want to know if somebody's unemployed, and a lot of times they question that. Okay, and sometimes there are good reasons, sometimes there's not. If there's good reasons, we're not going to bring the candidate forward. Okay, Eric Carpenter. I can't say anything but great things about Eric. Obviously, he works for you. He's 27 years of experience, very strong when it comes to public safety. He understands and has some hands-on experience with police and fire. Public works, great experience. I mean, being a PE, he has a lot of skills and characteristics you'd be looking for. He has good public and corporate experience. I think he has good experience with work diversity, HR issues. He has great communication skills, strong skills in sustainability, especially using his PE. I think he has a real handle on economic development, especially in Miami Beach. I think he's a guy that appears he can make the tough decisions. This is not just stuff from where he worked for you, but from the other jobs. And that's the only, there's no downsides to this candidate.
Thank you, Jim. We can keep moving on to the next candidate. Thanks.
Okay. Salah, I don't know if I can pronounce his last name. CZAPA or APZ.
Sapare.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I thought his issue is he's awful young. He has a very unique background in public safety. Young guy, very dynamic. But he has got some weaknesses. He's weak on public infrastructure. I think he's very good on work diversity and personnel issues. He has good communication skills. He's weaker in economic development and tourism than you probably need. His biggest problem, I think, is his age. And I think he's on the right path. But I think that his weakness is that he hasn't been in the field long enough, and he doesn't have the kind of hands-on with, especially in public works and economic development that you probably need. But he was an interesting other end of the spectrum in terms of very young, very aggressive person with a very unique situation up in DC on police. Next is Mr. Fiddler. He has a good public safety experience, good exposure to issues. He's very good in public works and infrastructure, has a lot of hands-on experience in capital projects. He's used to working and he's strong. He worked in a diverse economy, or diverse community, good communication skills, a lot of environmental sensibility in terms of stability and understanding the issues and various solutions. He has good economic development skills. HR, his skills are really pretty good. His problem is I think a major weakness is he has not worked for a council. He has no work as an executive for a council manager form of government. And that can be clearly a weakness. Okay, Mr. Frazier, public safety. He has a good background in public safety, all aspects. He also has really good understanding of public works, especially wastewater and electricity. He's a little weaker on the hands-on, especially when working in the field. His diversity, he has not had the kind of diversity that I think he would run into in Miami Beach in his career. His communication skills are good. He understands sustainability. And in fact, he's involved with a bunch of really big, interesting projects. They have an entire $288 million solar farm that is a remarkable accomplishment, which helps the revenues in the city. He's clearly weaker on tourism and economic development. Mr. I'm afraid I'm gonna butcher this one too. Rahmoni. Public works experience, very good. Oh, I know, I take that back. His public works expense is weak. His problem is that the sheriff does the public works, does all the public works for them. That's very common in a lot of places. His public works experience are good, but they tend to be more financially based.
Just,
rather
Jim,
than
I'm sorry to
hands-on.
interrupt.
Good
Jim, just one second.
Yeah.
When you said the sheriff, was it public safety or public works?
Public safety.
Yeah.
I'm sorry about that. Public safety.
Okay.
In other words, you get these situations where the sheriff actually provides the service for them. And in that case, yeah, you have a financial responsibility, but you're not managing that service. There's a very big difference.
Okay, so public safety, the sheriff.
he's
Okay,
good.
thanks.
Yeah, so I think that's weak. And his public works experience, he's got experience, but it's weak only in the sense that it's really from the financial standpoint, not really from the hands-on in the field. It's not like somebody that's like Mr. Carpenter, who's a PE and really understands and actually has field experience. He has good background working with the diverse community, good HR skills. He's a good communicator. I think he knows and appreciates, especially because of California, environmental sustainability. And I think he has some experience on projects that and tends to be the financial side of this project. He understands economic development, and especially from especially from the financial side.
Yeah, and before we move on, hold on, before we move on, for the record, his name is Tariq Rahmani.
I could not. I'm sorry, I went blank on pronouncing it. And then Mr. Wiverding, Jerome. Public safety, once again, he's weak on that because the sheriff provides their services. Real strong on public works, a lot of infrastructure building. He's had a lot of experience. Strong working in a diverse community. He has really good communication skills. He did well in the community the whole time he was there. Nothing but stellar approvals for all of his work. His problem is he tends to be almost all county, and his a lot of his experience is heavy on finance. He really understands economic development, especially the bonds, knows how to finance things, understands sustainability, especially being from California. And I believe that's the group.
Great, thank you. And thank you for putting together these candidates, going through the 120 resumes, narrowing it down to the 11 you mentioned, and then ultimately the 8 that came to us. I'm going to go out of left field and assume some of us want to speak? Or should I turn it over to our city attorney? Okay, Rick?
Each of you has a blue sheet in front of you, and it has the names of the 8 candidates that are before you. You are going to want to write 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 ranking, with 1 being your first choice and moving down from that. And when you have all that ready, Kayla will come by and pick up these ballots, for lack of a better term, and then we will tally and provide the lowest. Well, first we need to decide how many finalists. So let's figure that part out first.
Just a quick question. Can we fill out 1 candidate, 7 candidates? Does it have to be 8, or can we fill out as many as little or as much as we want?
The problem with doing that is that it could skew the results, because the way that we're tallying, you're going to look to see who has the lowest score. So if you only give rankings to 1, 2, and 3, then other candidates will have zeros. And that would actually help those candidates move up, because that will lower their scores. Alternatively, if you give everybody who you don't want to include 8s, then that will, skew the results in a negative direction for them, and there may in an unfair way, because there may be some colleagues of yours who like those candidates.
Better way to rank the score, that if somebody doesn't get put on this list, they get 0, which is the highest? Yeah. Well, first, Commissioner Suarez had his hand up, and then Commissioner Fernandez.
If I may make a suggestion to my colleagues, and I don't particularly like the way this ranking system works. I think once we decide how many candidates that we want to move forward, me in particular, I'm okay with moving forward with 3, but perhaps, we pick our top 5, and then there is no rank associated with the 1st and 5th. Those are just the 5 that we would want to interview and see. I think it's a little premature to give a rank to a candidate. I think the intent of the process of where we are now is to see who we want to interview. I don't believe that we have like a strong preference for one over the other. I think the intent is to get to the next step, which is to interview. And so I think ranking based on like a weighted scale is not the right approach. I mean, if I could make a suggestion, maybe we pick the top 5 that we are comfortable with, and then see what happens, and then bring it down to 3 perhaps by the end of the day.
Yeah, and I like that approach. Personally, I would prefer 3, but we can come up as a body with whatever number works best. I think that's better for a number of reasons, including the fact that whoever gets ranked, if we ranked all of them, and then they now have a public record that they were the worst ranked, I don't think we need to do that. I don't think that's fair to them. If they're that low in the list, they're not coming aboard. So I would just try to keep it on a higher level. Commissioner Fernandez.
I prefer that approach if we're going to be voting on ranking these individuals today. Because I'll tell you, I really am disappointed with some of the candidates. Some candidates are truly extraordinary, but other candidates just, I think Jim said he wished that we have had better candidates. And, this is the most deliberate decision that we should be making. And this is the most important decision. This is the chief executive running the day-to-day operations of our city government. And I just don't feel comfortable ranking some of these individuals, because I think some of these individuals, should have never even been on a list to be city manager in Miami Beach. Certainly, some of these are quality talent, but not quite yet city manager material. And I get concerned, especially when we have individuals who don't have experience in public safety and some of the issues that we prioritize as a city commission. So to the extent that we're ranking individuals today, I really feel uncomfortable ranking all 8 of them, because I just think it's a disservice to this process.
Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez.
I have one question. How can we rank and have that not be?
I think it's me.
What?
I think it's me.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, you were next?
I just had one question. When we do this ranking, so this is going to become public record, and the state doesn't provide any protection for us, because once that makes me uncomfortable, because I don't want these candidates to know. However, what if the candidates that I choose aren't, what if somebody else gets it? They're going to know how I rank them, and I don't think that's fair for us. There has to be a better process. There has to be some sort of better way to rank these people without making it public record.
Yeah, I think if we keep it to just, we heard 5, I prefer 3, then we could avoid that issue. Commissioner Magazine.
I agree with the comments of my colleagues, Commissioner Fernandez. I look at 1 or 2, I'm like, yeah, why are these in front of us? But though, to be fair, I know some of my comments were throw more at us and we are all professional enough that we can decide and filter that down. So I have no problems that, I'm confident in the top of this list. We have people with diverse experience running airports, running cities. So whether we got 9 candidates all with great experience or 3 or 4, at the end of the day, we're only going to have 1 city manager. So I'm okay with that. I think it would be most prudent to move forward with 3 candidates today to bring in for the final interview process. I think if we narrow it down to 3, we'll all come to some sort of consensus. And there's certainly 3 candidates here that are incredibly qualified. So I'd be comfortable bringing back 3 candidates. I think that wouldn't be too convoluted. It wouldn't be unfair. It wouldn't muddy the process. We've all had several weeks to essentially meet with these people to get a really good feel and sense for them. Now, say we choose that, how do we get to 3? Is it voting on our top 3 or is it voting on our top 5? I think there's arguments to be made for giving our top 3, giving our top 4, giving our top 5. Giving our top 8 might be a little unnecessary. I agree with some of the comments Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez was saying, whether it be salt in the womb or creating, I don't want to say enemies or things like that, but my feeling is we move forward with 3 candidates we wish to bring back for the final round, and we do that by either nominating our top 3, 4, or 5.
Just a quick perception. First of all, thank you to all the candidates who put their hat in the ring. It is not easy to put your hat in the ring. All of us up here obviously have done the same. All of our opponents who we ran against, but certainly in a very public position like running for city, trying to get appointed a city manager is a very public facing. I mentioned earlier in my comments, there's an aspect of people are currently employed. Florida law requires much of this to be public. Some of it is also a process that we do, but most of it requires it to be public. I'll also add that if you look at the history, not just of our city, but oftentimes cities will hire someone from within, sort of elevate that person, and that's certainly something that our city has done historically as well. So it's possible that many outside candidates, again, I'm just sort of reading the tea leaves, but many outside candidates may have said, well, I'm not sure I'm really going to be considered. I think I will say publicly that I hope that we did this in good faith, and I think we did, to try to find the best candidates, but certainly that's a factor that could be why, and I'll sort of say what you're saying, Commissioner Fernandez, we do have some good candidates here, but overall, yeah, I mean, I think we would have liked to have seen a little bit more robust. Commissioner Dominguez.
Thank you, Mayor. I too would have liked to have seen a more robust list, and where my head is at is to expand the search for a couple weeks, and maybe we get a Hispanic candidate or a female candidate and eliminate restrictions that we have on this position so that we truly are trying to find the best of the best. I know that the search firm said that they made calls to current city managers. I know some great ones that were not called. And so that was the comment I wanted to share.
Commissioner Bott.
Yeah, I do want to thank everybody who submitted their application to be considered, whether or not they ended up on the medium-length shortlist. It is, look, just applying for a job is onerous and there's risk involved, and applying for one of the most scrutinized jobs in public service at a municipal level is no small ask. I do think there are a couple of 2 or 3 people on this list who are of real interest. I will say, though, that cliff is steep. And yes, we can definitely be the grown-ups and make decisions on the entirety of the list, but I think it is significantly less than ideal that we find ourselves with not a single woman on the list, and that doesn't mean that, a woman would have to be considered, but the math isn't mathing, as the kids say today. it doesn't make sense that out of 8 candidates, no one is female. It just doesn't. That's not the population skew, and I think that is weird. I also am surprised at the overall caliber. Again, the folks who I think are at the top of my list notwithstanding, and it's not a reflection on people's professional capability or the heights to which they will rise or what they've done so far in their careers. This is not a slam on anybody. This is a very specific, very demanding, and very clearly articulated job. And for us to be choosing from people who are on the short list who clearly don't meet the qualifications that we are expecting as a minimum. That's not even including the intangibles that you only get from speaking with people in person. And, you know, I'm disappointed, to put it mildly. And so my suggestion would be to not rank anybody, but to indicate with an I or an N, interview or no interview, the top 3 or 5 people on this list, but also extend for just 2 more weeks. So it's not a huge delay, but timing is everything. And you never know who may have become free to pursue something. And I would suggest doing it that way. And that's what I have to say.
Commissioner Suarez.
Thank you, Mayor Minor. You know, one thing that became abundantly clear was that we're going to follow a process. And we're not the only ones following a process. It's the candidates following a process. Their lives are right now on hold. And they were under the assumption that we are going to follow a very strict process because we as a body voted that way. I think it is highly unfair to the candidates that have applied to say, you know, thank you, but we don't really think you're the best, and we're hoping to find someone better than you. We haven't even interviewed these people in person. You know, I do think there are 3 stellar candidates on there. And as far as no women applying, look, the HR Gov is woman-owned. They are a woman-owned firm. And, you know, to be honest, it's not easy working in Miami Beach as a city manager. You know, our last city manager was a woman. She did a great job. Our current interim city manager is a woman. You know, if there were 7 women on the short list, no one up here would be saying, well, why isn't there any men applying? Okay, I think it's highly inappropriate to put a gender on this. We are a merit-based system. We are based on qualifications, okay, not gender or race. And, you know, I grew up in life getting ahead by not saying I'm not white. Okay, I got ahead in life because I did the right thing and I worked hard. And the people that threw their hat in the ring, they're putting their professional lives at risk. Their families are on hold. Their future is on hold. And for us as a body to say, well, we don't really like you. We want to hopefully get someone else. I mean, what kind of message are we going to be sending these people? What kind of message are we going to be sending to the world that we're going to just kind of abandon the process and say, you know, yeah, the hiring process in Miami Beach is going to be like this. You know, another thing that's abundantly clear, the hiring process here in Miami Beach, you know, I can see why no one wants to apply here. It's all about favors. It's all about who you know. It's never about what you've done, what qualifications you have, what accomplishments you've made. And I find it highly inappropriate to genderize this
Commissioner Bott.
I cannot speak for my colleagues, nor would I ever try to, but I can tell you that if I saw a list of 8 candidates who are all one gender or another, I would say there's something amiss. I'm not trying to force a round peg into a square hole. I'm just saying that it is odd. I'm not suggesting that anybody who gets this job or gets interviewed for this job should do so on anything less than the merits. I think anybody who knows me for my entire life knows that that is how I feel, that's what I stand for, and that will not change. I understand that people are putting themselves out. They're in a process. I'm not suggesting that we delay this process for a year. I'm asking for an additional 2 weeks because life is often about timing, and it doesn't mean that the candidates who I think are on my short list are not excellent candidates, but it is weird to me that there are no women on this list. And for us to say that we are a city about process, we just spent how many countless hours since December talking about an infrastructure project that has been delayed for 7 or 8 years to try to get it right. This is the biggest decision we as a body will make. And if 2 weeks means that we exercise every opportunity, the way we're doing on multiple other projects in the city, to make sure that we're getting it right, then I think that is time well spent. We do not, everybody has heard me say, measure twice, cut once. You're all sick of hearing me say it, but it applies to this as well. It does not mean that the 3 people who I am putting on my list are not qualified, competent, viable candidates. It just means that there is something weird when 50% of the population is not represented.
Thank you. So this is where I'm at. I think we do need to move forward, and it's not just need to move forward. I'm not a prophet, so I can't predict the future, but I really don't think extending this 2 weeks, a month, I don't think it's going to make a difference. This was a very robust process. I understand we had a comment that some city managers weren't called. We're not going to call everybody. It's also the HR Gov has to make a determination who they think is going to move. If somebody is already a city manager of a city, they may not be apt to move. You're usually looking for somebody who's going to elevate. But either way, I don't think there's anybody who's qualified for this position who does not know this position exists. I mean, it's just like, it's out there everywhere. We had people from 29 different states. HR Gov, I was impressed that they called people. They were thinking outside the box of people who they believed could be qualified for this position. But ultimately, people know about this position. If they were interested, they would have applied. I also would have liked to have seen women. I mentioned that females on this list. And I mentioned it in my opening remarks. And my office pushed back on HR Gov as to why that was. And ultimately, to be quite frank, they pushed back and said that for whatever reason, the people who applied didn't meet the criteria. I think we need to move forward. I think we have the candidates here. I don't think the list is going to change. And let's just rank the top 3. That's how I would vote. I believe Commissioner Magazine. Commissioner Rosen's up.
Okay, so let me understand what you're proposing, Commissioner Bott. You're saying not to extend the process, allow for 2 more weeks, yet open it up between now and 2 more weeks from now so that anyone could apply, and then we would be responsible for going through any resumes that come in that period. Okay, well, that's not delaying the process. Changing on the fly. Well, it's my turn to speak. I'm not opposed to that because, we're not voting on this anyway. We're doing second interviews. I have no problem opening it up. I have a few calls that I might want to make, you know, to people in our community locally that might not have applied, and maybe, you know, encourage them. And that's not delaying the process. That's 2 more weeks. So, I would support that.
Ask a point of clarification. I don't know if we have the votes for it, we'll see, but are you, whoever is proposing or in favor of 2 more weeks, are we still considering bringing this for a vote on the July 24th commission meeting? Because although, if the answer is no, then we are delaying the process.
It would be not delaying the process. It would be still to have a commission vote and on the 24th. It would not be changing the parameters. It would just be keeping it open in case somebody changed their mind.
Can I intercede for 1 second? Sure. Somebody, I mean, tell me, Mr. City Attorney, I think that could still happen right now. We could rank these people and somebody could apply, and I don't think anything would stop us from considering. I don't think that would be good practice, but Mr. City Attorney.
There was in fact a process a few managers ago where an individual who had not applied was appointed to be city manager. So there is nothing that would stop this body from doing that.
So my understanding was that the application process was closed, and therefore somebody had been sort of vacillating. They were not able to apply. If you're saying that somebody could still apply, and you know, somebody changes their mind, then that's fine. I'm going to let that fall where it is. I'm not suggesting we change the qualifications.
I'm sorry to keep interceding, but I think the words are very important. I think what our city attorney just said, tell me if I'm wrong, is the candidate several city managers ago never even applied. Never even submitted. I'm not favoring this, but I'm just saying never applied, and they were voted in as city manager. Is that correct?
I am not sure whether that individual applied. I know that that individual was not in the running. It seems like Commissioner Fernandez was perhaps present and has specifics.
Again, I'm not expressing any favor to that. I don't think that is good practice. I'm just saying the facts of what happened. What I'm saying is a person under the law of our city, nothing would preclude that from happening right now. So I don't see any benefit of extending this process right now.
Right, and in fact, I believe that happened recently in Coral Gables, where there was somebody unexpected, and he was in the audience. They said, you know what, we're going to make that guy our city manager, and there were the votes to do it, and that's what got done. And you know what? They were the laughing stock of the entire country, the laughing stock. I do not want to be the laughing stock, okay? We are a serious city. We need to put on our big boy and girl pants and move forward. In fact, how we got here at our first city meeting about the city manager, we had an extremely highly qualified candidate internally who HR.gov just spoke glowingly of, and there was strong support for that candidate. But we said, you know what? We want to be robust. We want to cross all T's, dot all I's. So let's open up that process. And that's what brings us here today. In fact, there were a lot of people very comfortable moving forward previously. And even the ones that were not were very, very supportive of the qualifications of that internal candidate. And that's where we got to a month and a half later. And we could sit here and over-engineer this to death and say, more time, more time. We'll always be able to say that. If Jack Welch came in and applied, we'd be able to say, if we have 2 more weeks, perhaps Steve Jobs or Bill Gates applies, right? But we have good candidates we're comfortable with. It seems like we don't need 9 candidates that we're comfortable with. I'm upset we didn't get more robust candidates, but we have the top candidates that I think have extremely high qualifications, that I have several that I'd be fine interchangeably if they were our next city manager. And I think we've all made statements about moving forward. the importance of doing so, and I think we put our money where our mouth is. And you know, that's the camp I'm in. It's arbitrary to me, you know, how we get there, but I do think that it's important that we come together as a body. I want this to be a decision we all celebrate in, right? I don't want this to be, this faction wants to do this. Yes, we're all going to have differences of opinions. That's democracy, and it is beautiful. As messy as it is beautiful. But I do hope there can be a unification amongst this body, because culture is set from the top in any organization, a sports team, a company, a city government. And that culture is going to filter down to our employees and, more importantly, to our residents. So we're going to be able to sit up here and talk about some differences, and that's healthy, but I really hope we can unify in moving forward in a decision. And whether it was the person we voted for or not, be proud. I'm going to vote for somebody at the end of the day. If they don't get that, I'm going to walk up to that man or woman that does and say, congratulations, our city is under your control, and be proud and support them. And I really hope that we can unify as a body and come forward, talk about some of our differences, but at the end of the day, set that culture from the top.
If I may.
Commissioner Bott had the floor, so I will return the floor to you, Commissioner Bott.
I'm not going to fall on my sword. I agree with much of what you just said. Culture is set by the top. I am not trying to engineer somebody into a spot. I feel comfortable with at least 2, possibly 3 of the people on the list. I'm not trying to get anybody into the consideration set without going through the application process, which has happened here before, which I do not think is a good look. I agree. My thought was purely if we are moving forward anyhow and somebody decides to pull the trigger and submit to the application process in the next couple weeks as we move forward, because I was told, and maybe this is incorrect, that the process is closed. Just keep the process open until the interviews. But I'm not, if there's no appetite for that, I'm not going to fall on my sword, because it is more important for us to move together and do what's right for our city and our residents. I will tell you though, however, I am not comfortable with the implications that have been made about engineering things or special interests or who you know. I know the people in this room. It's a constant joke when people ask me, hey, have you ever talked to so-and-so about this? You should really talk to them. I'm like, I have no idea who that is. So there's no favors going forth here. It is me trying to get the best people in the consideration set within the parameters of the process that we set up, and that is it. Not extending by 6 months, 6 weeks even. So I wanted to clear the air, say that on the record, and the only other thing I will say about the process is, instead of ranking the people who we would like to move forward to the next stage of interview, why don't we just indicate them with a simple check mark and not rank them 1, 2, 3, or A, B, C? Because we're just trying to identify the people who should go to the next place. And we don't need to rank that we think one person is better than the other, because we haven't had the in-person interviews yet.
Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So let me just lay some groundwork here. This weekend, I sent an email to city staff expressing how disappointed I was with the work that I received. I found inaccurateness and I found sloppiness in some of the materials I received, and I believe that for the chief executive officer of the city of Miami Beach, the public deserved a better level of accuracy from those who are leading a national search for this most important role in our city government. So I expressed to our staff my frustration with that. I had an opportunity to speak with the recruiter following the many interviews I did, and I expressed to the recruiter, some candidates really are standout candidates, and those were kind of on the minority end, and the others were very inexperienced, not ready to lead what should be the most desirable city manager job in America. We should have had a robust list of applicants to choose from. I should be losing sleep selecting from the very best managers, public administrators in this country, selecting the narrowing down. I can't even tell you I can rank some of these candidates because some shouldn't be on this list and others I didn't spend enough time. 30 minutes on a Zoom interview, it's not enough time to say, well, this one is my second, third, or fourth favorite. It's just not fair to the process. So if we're gonna shortlist, I'm okay shortlisting if we're not ranking them. Because again, we need to hear more from these individuals. We can't show where our preferences are because that does a disservice to the process. And I got to tell you, I was coming in here. I was going to suggest, and I told the recruiter in my conversation with them, our city, our taxpayers deserve a more robust pool of candidates. And I was going to ask the recruiter for 30 more days. Go out there, make more phone calls, make sure that there was no stone left unturned. But they'll be changing the process. That would be changing the process. And you know what? I sat at this dais in April, and I made a commitment to a process. I made a commitment to a process, and I changed the process today. And then we come back later in July, and it's going to be, oh, let's change the process again because there's another person so-and-so called. There's a great person. Well, let's change the process again. And you know what? This is all too important for now to start setting the precedent of changing the process midway. So while I was coming in here with this thought in my mind that we deserve a wider pool of candidates, I have serious concerns today in the middle of this process to say I'm going to change the process. I need to stay true to the commitment I made. I made a commitment to a national selection process. We have some great candidates here, but I too am very disappointed that there's not a single woman in America that has made this list to lead our city. I am disappointed that out of 34 cities in Miami-Dade County and other cities in Broward County and the other governmental jurisdictions that we have here, that we don't have more local candidates. I'm disappointed by the amount of candidates that we have here that have actually led a city. I don't know how we end up with a short list of candidates to run a city where such few of them have ever sat at a city manager's chair. And so we have work to do today. I'm not satisfied with the work that this recruiting firm has done, but we do have good candidates before us to at least shortlist for an interview, and that's what I'm going to move forward with today.
Thank you, Fernandez. I echo a lot of those sentiments. I actually went back and read word for word the transcript from the last time we hired our city manager, and the sentiment was the same about disappointment. And maybe we're looking at this the wrong way because at Miami Beach, we're born on third base. And if we're not getting the right candidates, I say let's take that as a challenge to ourselves. Let's do some self-reflection. Maybe it's the culture that we're all setting, why there's not more interest. Right? Perhaps that's part of the reason. We've had recruitment issues. So we can't, maybe let's not point there. Let's all look in the mirror, myself included, and say, is there something that we're doing where we're not facilitating the right environment where, because when I look at it, people should be jumping from the rafters. But this is an anomaly. This has actually happened years in the past. So maybe it's something incumbent on us. I agree with your sentiment. I be fine. I think now we start firming up how this is actually going to go, right? We've all said what we're going to say. So let's start putting some parameters around how we move forward. I'd like
That a motion?
it will be. Yes.
Okay, great.
I like your suggestion very much about not ranked choice because I don't want to set artificial scores or an artificial starting point for people after having a 20-minute conversation or reviewing resumes. So I'll make a motion. I'm not I want this to be a collaborative process. I'm just putting this out there as a starting point. But I'll make a motion that we essentially move forward with bringing back 3 candidates for a final round of interview. How we get to those 3 candidates is by each picking either, I guess making a motion, I can't say, we will each pick in a non-ranked form 4 candidates. And whatever candidates, the 3 candidates that get the most collective votes, and they're not going to be ranked, are going to be the 3 that we move forward with. I'll put that out there as a starting motion. If people want to, tinker around the edges, but I think it's important that we start to firm up how this process actually looks.
Do we have a second? We ready to vote? Okay, before you do, I actually just want to reflect because I was going to make similar comments. You were very eloquent. Miami Beach is not for everybody. It's hard to know. We've heard some criticisms of the recruiting firm. Maybe it's valid, maybe it's not. I have no idea. Obviously, we understand the process, but we're not at every step of the way. They've, I think, done a nice job in some other positions that we have vacant, getting some qualified candidates. I think in Miami Beach, though, we are not only high profile, but I agree with what you said. We got to look within. And I'm just talking about this body, but previous commissions as well. We can, where it could get political, it could get ugly. We are an international city. Things that happen here that happen in other cities don't get news, but here they do. And I think, and coupled with the fact how past positions have been filled, I'm not entirely shocked that many people don't want to throw their hat in the ring. Commissioner Fernandez.
So what I would suggest is that we interview 4 candidates. They've shortlisted 8 candidates. I think it's, better to have a wider pool than a smaller pool to select from. Again, I think most of us probably only met these individuals, most of these individuals through Zoom for a very short period of time. And so I would feel more comfortable not limiting ourselves so much as to 3 candidates that we could, narrow it down to 4 candidates. I would feel more comfortable with that.
Commissioner Rosen-Gonzalez.
Also, are we expecting to do a numerical ranking, or can we do, like Tanya said, which I thought was a good idea, like pass fail? We're going to do interview, no interview. Okay.
That's Mr. Mayor.
Commissioner Suarez.
Just as a point of order, initially when I suggested this, that's what I would have liked to do. Us pick our top 5 and narrow it down to 3 or 4, because we're not all going to pick the same. And there's not going to be, some candidates might get 3-3, and so once we have the cross reference of 5, then we can narrow it down to 3 or 4. And if my colleague Commissioner Fernandez wants to do 4, I'm okay with that as well.
Just a question, City Attorney. City Attorney, what's the criteria to go forward? Do you need 4 votes for someone who has a check mark next to their name? I mean, how do we determine that?
This is uncharted territory, so why don't we ask each of you to give us your, well, first you need to decide, do you want 3 or 4? Because I've heard Commissioner Fernandez would like 4, that some of you all would like 3. So I think you need consensus on that first. And then depending on that, you should select either your top 4 or 5 so that you're selecting one more than what you would like to come back. And we will look to see if there is enough consensus, or the top 4 of those 5 will come back as the 4.
One more question. Do you have to put 4? I mean, let's say, I'm asking this seriously. Let's say there's only 3 candidates that I believe are qualified. I'm saying this hypothetically, to be city manager of the city. But are you forcing me to put a 4th name on there because I have to, or could I leave it blank?
I'm just trying to think if that might skew the results one way or another.
Ultimately, what's going to happen here is, I'm assuming the way this motion is going to go is you're going to have 4 of us on the dais put someone on the list to get them to move forward. Right? So I don't think it skews it. If you don't write anyone down, then you don't have that 4th. You're not going to have the 4th vote.
I think that's right. I think that we can do it that way, that you don't need to put your top 4 if you'd rather put 2 or 3. We will see how that works once we plug in the numbers, but that, I think, could work.
And that's all public.
It will all be public, yes.
So there's a motion on the table for 3. I prefer 3, but if it's 4, it's 4. I'm indifferent to that.
I prefer having a lot of people to
Yeah,
answer.
I totally get it. Can we do almost like a little straw poll up here?
I think we got
decide whether people would rather 3 or 4?
I'm seeing a lot of nods that 4 will be okay.
Alright, so could I take that as a friendly amendment?
What was the decision if you don't have a 4th, hypothetically?
You only have to put forward 3. Yeah. Okay, so, Mr. City Attorney, I'd like to accept that friendly amendment. We have a motion on the table that we are going to listen. Yeah, bring back 4 candidates.
Mayor?
Commissioner Magazine.
Yeah, why didn't Bill Gates apply? So, Mr. City Attorney, the motion on the table, I accept my friend and colleague, Commissioner Fernandez's friendly amendment that we will move forward to bring back 4 candidates for a final round of interviews. And how we get there is we will all collectively submit 5 candidates that we would like to interview in no ranked order, and the 4 candidates that get the most collective votes move forward.
So my understanding was a little different. I thought we were gonna, if someone's name appears 4 times, meaning the majority of this body, then they would move forward. But I guess that's the way I understood it. And then we would put 4 names on. Each person would put 4 names on, and if the person has 4 check marks, they move forward into the process.
I think we need to play it out, but that sounds like it could be how it will play out.
Yes, so that motion, it's not ranking or listing 5 candidates, it's listing 4 candidates. Yes, check, so it's not ranked. Commissioner Rosen Gonzalez, right? We're just checking the 4 candidates that we want as the 4 finalists. If people want to only list 1 candidate, if they only want to list 2 or 3, could be fine.
I understood that you were going to check 5 so that we could arrive at 4 in case there's some differences of opinion.
Well, we should determine that. But my understanding was that it would be 4, and then it would be whoever, if they have the majority of votes, you move forward with the process. But let's figure that out.
Well, yes, but I don't think that that's something that we should do on the fly, right? We should determine if somebody needs to get 4 votes, or it is just the 4 candidates that get the most total votes, right? Because there could be candidates that get the most votes, but they don't get 4 total votes.
No, that has to be included in the motion.
Yeah, right, that's what I'm saying. So I don't think we can just do this on the fly, where you said just see how it plays out. I think we should all select 4 candidates, or however many that we would like, but up to 4, and the people that get the most amount of votes move forward.
I'll accept that. Mr. Second on the motion, you're good with that?
Yeah.
Commissioner Suarez.
Just to be clear, we're gonna be getting the highest vote getters out of a selection of 5 or 4? Okay.
Please let me know once you're done and I'll collect your papers. Okay, I'm going to start by reading who the person voting and whom they voted for. So Mayor Minor, he has Eric Carpenter, Salah Zabari, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding. Commissioner Rosa Gonzalez has Anthony Alacastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, Jay Wilberding. Commissioner Suarez has Anthony Alacastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding. Commissioner Fernandez has Scott Andrews, Eric Carpenter. No, for Commissioner Fernandez. Scott Andrews, Eric Carpenter, Garrett Fiddler, Jerome Wilberding. Commissioner Bat has Anthony Alacastro, Scott Andrews, and Eric Carpenter. Vice Mayor Dominguez has Anthony Alacastro, Scott Andrews, Eric Carpenter, and Salah Sapari. And Commissioner Magazine has Anthony Alacastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding. Thank you. Okay, so again, Mayor Minor has Eric Carpenter, Salah Sapari, Tariq Ramani, Jerome Wilberding. Commissioner Magazine has Anthony Alacastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding. Vice Mayor Dominguez has Anthony Alacastro, Scott Andrews, Eric Carpenter, and Salah Sapari. Commissioner Bat has Anthony Alicastro, Scott Andrews, and Eric Carpenter. Commissioner Fernandez has Scott Andrews, Eric Carpenter, Garrett Fiddler, and Jerome Wilberding. Commissioner Suarez has Anthony Alicastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding. And Commissioner Kristen Rosen Gonzalez has Anthony Alicastro, Eric Carpenter, Tariq Ramani, and Jerome Wilberding.
So the top four vote getters are Anthony Alicastro with 5, Eric Carpenter with 7, Tariq Ramani with 4, and Jerome Wilverding with 5.
Okay, thank you. I think we have our marching orders. The next steps would be we would each meet with the candidates, and am I correct that this will be on the commission agenda for a commission vote at the July 24th meeting?
Yes, that's correct. You will interview one-on-one the day before the commission meeting, and then you will conduct public interviews on the day of the commission meeting.
Okay. Thank you so much. I think this was a good discussion, and thank you all for it. And now we have our city attorney who's motioning.
One more question, housekeeping. We mentioned earlier that we would like direction or approval that we may cover airfare and hotel for anyone who's traveling, but we just need somebody to make a motion and approve that, please.
I'll make that motion.
Let's call a vote.
Okay, so I have a motion by Commissioner Suarez, second by Commissioner Bat.
Anybody disagree? Okay, pass by acclamation.
Okay, motion carries. Thank you.
I think we're adjourned. Thank you all.